Before I begin, I just want to warn anyone who hasn't played through DDLC or Undertale might want to skip out on this video. As these are older games that most people have played through, I will be spoiling the crap out of DDLC and some of the concepts for Undertale as well. Some graphic content will be discussed, so be warned. This game is not for the faint of heart. Back in the grand old year of 2018, I walked the halls of a high school for the first time. This was a completely new experience for me, and my first few days were the most interesting. I didn't befriend the rich kids, the athletic kids, or the smart kids. No, it was the anime-loving weeb kids that I met and befriended. Now, before you start freaking out, no, this isn't an essay analyzing my high school experience. This all connects. Don't worry. One of the very first after-school, still in the halls, waiting for our parents to pick us up conversations that I was a part of was with two of these said friends. One of them dropped the name of DDLC and immediately told me not to look it up, while laughing at my ignorance. Me, thinking some sort of hentai special, looked it up for scientific purposes and motives only. Instead of a juicy sweet anime with some weird stuff, I saw screenshots and descriptions of a dating simulator with 4 cute schoolgirls on the cover. Typical weebs. As I met more and more people online, every once in a while the topic of this game would come up. As many different people suggested that I should play it, I would refuse. I've got COD and Rainbow Six Siege, and you know what they say, bros before hoes. However, I eventually broke down when some of my most loyal Twitch viewers, twitch.tv/cord_gamer.com, link down below, just shameless plug real quick, begged me to play it. And thus begins my experience with this interesting, unique, heartfelt, and truly frightening game. As you may be able to tell, and already know, I'm really late to the party on this game. So, I won't be covering every aspect of this game in depth. Rather, I want to focus on the aspects that Team Salvo did really well in, and the aspects that, in my opinion, failed at. Because this review will not be focusing hugely on the plot, I will be attempting to give a 1-minute recap. The game pops you in as a loser high school student whom you name at the beginning. He runs into his clingy neighbor Sayori, who invites you to join a literature club. Because you are a loser who is also a simp, you agree, and to your benefit, because this club is made up of Sayori and 3 other stereotypically hot anime girls, Monika, Yuri, and Natsuki. You join this literature club and engage in a poem writing minigame each endgame night. This is how you flirt with the girl of your choice. Then the weekend comes, you pick whatever girl you're going to work with to help for the book fair on Monday, and Sayori also admits she struggles with depression. Monday comes, Sayori is not at school, you go back home to check on her, and slowly open the door. Bang! She's dead. Hanging from the ceiling, having committed suicide, effectively ending the first act and closing out your game. The second act is where your fun begins. When booting up the gameplay is very similar. Monika invites you to the literature club, you and Natsuki are still there, and you write poems every night. However, Sayori is still dead. Because the game is missing a main character, throughout the next 2 to 3 hours of the game, it will have random jump scares that are explained away as the game trying to compensate for Sayori's character being deleted. Also, Yuri and Natsuki are a lot more mentally unstable and sporadic. When the weekend comes, either Yuri stabs herself or Natsuki's head explodes. Monika then reveals that the game was just a facade and that all she ever wanted was your attention. However, you always went after the other girls, so she killed Sayori first, thinking that it would solve it. Then you still didn't go after her, so she made Yuri and Natsuki unstable. Then she couldn't take it any longer and killed both of them off. She then deletes the game, ending the second act, and takes you into a parallel universe room to spend eternity with her, starting the third act. You can stay here and conversate with Monika as long as you like, until you go into the actual game files and delete Monika's character file. She then fades into oblivion, forces the games to close, and starts the fourth and final act. The game boots up as normal. Sayori is back, and this segment is pretty close to how the game started. However, Monika is no longer the club president. Sayori is. Natsuki and Yuri are here as well, and after the first meeting, leave you and Sayori alone. Sayori then explains that she has the same powers and desires that Monika did, and starts to pull you into that same parallel universe room until Monika from the grave stops her, ending the game once and for all. And Jesus Christ, this is way longer than a minute. This game is just complicated, man. Now, the main appeal to this game is the psychological horror aspect of it. For players to truly experience the horrors of DDLC, the game, but especially the first act, really needed to sell the high school dating sim aesthetic as a nice, comfy, and safe place to be with these beautiful girls that appeal to the simp in all of us. This happens to be one of DDLC's strengths. The story and all the characters are well written and compelling. While replaying the game to record footage for this video, I couldn't help but be immersed in the story and characters, even though I knew what was really going on behind the scene. The way the girls are written makes the audience truly care for them and really want to befriend them and help them out, especially Sayori. It is this feeling of compassion of wanting to assist these girls that DDLC takes advantage of in order to truly make a scary and frightening game. The other aspect this game excels in are the jump scares. The second act is, in my opinion, really psychologically disturbing, because this previous setting was set up as a nice and safe place. This makes every flat music note, tilted background, or jump scare more, I guess, scary. The music in this game is damn near perfect, as it is changed and manipulated for either the scary aesthetic or the happy aesthetic, and is very memorable. One minor gripe I have with the story is the fact I think the game makes it way too obvious that Monaco is somehow independent of the facade. I ended up guessing the main plot twist halfway through the second act. It was just that obvious, for me at least. Overall, this game really excels in creating a safe environment, then subverting all of your expectations while breaking the fourth wall. Oh hey, that sounds like another game. I think it's not that large of a leap in logic that some of Team Salvo's ideas and concepts for DDLC were inspired by Undertale, and who could blame them? It was one of the biggest indie hits of all time, and has gameplay and story elements that are pretty unique. I don't want to go too deep into Undertale, because an Undertale review will be in the works at some point in the future, but these two games have some stark similarities. First, both of them set certain expectations for the player regarding the game, but then subvert those expectations in unexpected and unique ways. With Undertale, it was the generic RPG systems of XP and level actually playing into the story. In DDLC, it's the dating sim, well, not being a dating sim. Next, they both have almost sentient characters that break the fourth wall. Flowey and Undertale mirrors Monica in some very similar ways, as they are both the antagonists behind the scenes pulling the strings. Thirdly, they both have different endings that you can get based on gameplay choices. In Undertale, you have to do the neutral playthrough so you can complete the pacifist run, earning the special ending during your second playthrough. DDLC also has a quote-unquote neutral and pacifist ending. The neutral ending would be the normal ending, where Sayori becomes the club president and Monica has to shut down the game before Sayori becomes completely corrupted with her power. There is also a good ending, where you go and experience all the mini storylines in the first act with Sayori, Yuri, and Natsuki by saving and reloading at certain parts of the game before going into the second act. Then, at the end of the game, when Sayori becomes the club president, instead of obsessing over you, she explains she appreciates the concern and love that you showed everyone in the club, and that even though the game is over, they all love you. This is followed by a heartwarming credits section, with a letter from Don Salvato, the founder of Team Salvato, at the end. Finally, the soundtrack for both of these games are just amazing and fits these aesthetics perfectly. I mean, I know it's a given for a game to have a good soundtrack, but I just wanted to bring up Undertale's soundtrack, okay? While these two games are very similar, their messages and impact, on me at least, are incredibly different. Undertale's ending brought a smile to my face as I appreciated my friends and the people that cared for me more. For DDLC's ending, well, there's a little more to discuss here. I would propose DDLC has one main message. You never really know how someone is doing. This is shown through all of the main characters. Your best friend Sayori, while seeming like a happy and caring person, struggles with depression and suicidal thoughts. Yuri is a smart but reclusive girl who engages in cutting herself. And Natsuki, while being the brightest of the bunch, deals with abuse at home. And this message isn't necessarily a bad one. At least for me, I could somewhat take for granted how my friends are really doing, so I always try and check up on my friends, whether or not they've admitted to me their struggles in life. But I think this game undercuts its own message through the game itself. Like I emphasized before, DDLC's horror really stems from its ability to immerse the player into a seemingly safe environment and then take it all away by surprise, making the safe environment a very unsafe, scary, and hostile place. This, in and of itself, is very rough psychologically, as, this is a psychological horror game. Especially for people who really immerse themselves into the characters and story of DDLC, it's almost traumatic. I can speak from experience for this. I am a pretty mentally stable person, thankfully. I've never had to deal with huge mental issues such as depression or anxiety or any of that stuff. An astute observer may have noticed that none of the gameplay in this video is from past the first act. The reason for this is twofold. One, I didn't want to show some of the creepier, more graphic parts in this video, and secondly, and most importantly, I wanted to preserve, at least what's left of, my sanity. This game, when I first played through it, especially after the game changed from its dating sim, really fucked with me. I didn't want to replay that part of the game again. And I'm not the only one who has these sentiments either. After this game was released, there were 2 different suicides that the parents attributed to their children playing DDLC. Now, I'm not one of those who blames video game violence for all the problems in our world, and while I'm not saying that this is DDLC's fault completely, it would not be a surprise to me if this game did contribute to the mental instability of these children. In conclusion, this game is a spectacle, really. For its well-written story, relatable characters, well-placed plot, and an overall amazing horror game, I rate this game a 9 out of 10. It loses a point for being too predictable in my opinion. However, this is probably one of the few games that, while rated so highly, I cannot recommend. As this game portrays, you can never really know how someone is mentally doing, and as this game can really mess with people's heads, I cannot, in good conscience, suggest anyone to play it. While it may be a unique and memorable game, it is a game I sometimes wish I didn't remember. But what do you guys think? Am I being too harsh on the game, or did this show you an aspect of DDLC that you didn't think about? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you're new to the channel, I would love if you hit that subscribe button, and if you enjoyed today's video, click that like button. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.